Do you want to hear the way I started writing songs with John? My son was playing basketball, and I had a little Toyota Celica, and I was playing The Missing Years in my car when taking my son to basketball practice, and I kept playing that record, and my son got a job working at the Lion's Head Theater. John came in to go to the movies, and my son handed him his popcorn and said, "You're John Prine, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "My dad's been playing your record in the car a lot, and we really like it." And my dad's a songwriter too, and he said, "Oh, who's your dad?" And he told him, and John said, "Oh yeah, I know him." And and Nathan said, "You ought to be writing songs with my dad." And so the next day, John called me. He says, I ran into your son at the movie theater, and he said, we ought to be writing songs together. What do you got going on? And he just showed up, and it was in this room, and I had DA-88s or some different format in those days, but he was still smoking cigarettes, and he'd come with a six-pack of Cokes and a bunch of cigarettes. And in those days, the way the studio was configured, the cigarette smoke went into the air conditioning system and went throughout the house. And so my wife would say, "Well, can't you get him to go outside and smoke?" And I said, "Baby, it's cold out there, and he's John Prine." I mean, I would have taken up smoking myself just to have him there. But it was so great because we could write a song, put down a beat, and play a few acoustics and a bass and maybe an electric part or something. And sometimes John would play, sometimes he wouldn't. But we'd just get the song down, a work tape form, and with him singing, of course, and send it to Howie because this was the second record that Howie Epstein was producing for John. So the first song, Howie said, "Hey, I like that. Go do that again." And so John kept coming over, and we wrote 6 songs for that record, and it was thrilling. I got to go and play on the record and be a part of it. It was a good hang for a while. It's just, he's magical. To I can't believe I'm writing songs with John Prine, kind of a thing. But well, he'd show up about 6 o'clock with his Cokes and cigarettes, and we had an idea, and sometimes we didn't. I mean, the titles are really strange. I mean, "We Are the Lonely" was just "We Are the Lonely" all together, and it's cops eating donuts and crazy stuff, and then um, the song I really love is the cheating song is "Day Is Done." I don't know if you know that song,
Yeah.
but and then "Big Fat Love." We just had fun, and the wonderful thing is we didn't have to please anybody. For me, I was still writing at Tree Publishing in those days. I was a writer there for 15 years, and it was like getting out, letting out a country and western jail or something. It's like, wow, we can do anything we want, and the only person that's got to like it is John, you know, and Howie, and then Howie would. We got to California, and Howie would start with having me play exactly what I played on the work tapes, and then he'd even be handing me the bass, and I'm looking at him like, "Howie, you're the bass player for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Don't hand me the bass." But he said, "No, just play what you played on the work tape. It's cool, whatever." But thankfully, he replaced a lot of that. But it's really fun to make that record. And I showed you that guitar that he gave me. We got to the guitar show, and I tried to write a check for the Harmony Rocket that I found, and I started writing the check, and the guy says, "No, I don't take checks." And so I said, "Well, I'll come back tomorrow with the cash." And John and I were in the parking lot, and we'd come there together. And he says, "Well, I'm going to come back tomorrow." I said, "I'm coming back tomorrow too. I got to get that Harmony Rocket, and so I didn't make it back the next day, but John did, and sweetheart that he was, he bought the guitar, and then he held on to it till Christmas Eve and put a big red bow on it and showed up at the side door. And the kids, by then John was some kind of folk hero. They loved all his music, and it was snowing, and he had some snow in his bed. Travis tells the story, my son Travis, and um, anyway, it was just he gifted me this great guitar, and he was just a treasure. Well, I mean, anybody that saw him and knew that he was John Prine was just, I'm sure there were people that were just in awe of him everywhere. I mean, how could you not be? A couple of times we played a festival up in Kentucky near Paradise. The Everly Brothers had a bit of a festival up there. And we played up there with Delbert one time, I think. And it was just John, just having him around. You just look at him and start hearing those songs. His first record, I was living in Hollywood when his first record came out, and a friend of mine called me on the phone and said, "You got to get over here." And went and listened to John's record 3 or 4 times, and then on the way home I went to Tower Records and bought my own copy. And yeah. So I'm just a fan like everybody else. If you don't know who John Prine is, what good are you in the world? Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever go eat meatloaf anywhere with him?
Yeah, I met him over at Arnold's many times. I think the last time I was there with him to share a meal was I was with Sean Camp, and we were there, and he just happened in. But a couple times I was just there, and he didn't come with anybody. He came over there to eat meatloaf, and that's why he was there. And there's a place, Copper Kettle down the street, and he signed the wall, more meatloaf or something. It's like, but when we were making the record, John, we'd get home from tracking all day, and we're staying in this hotel in Hollywood, and he'd just start cooking a cheeseburger in the middle of the night. I mean, it's 3 in the morning, and he's frying up a cheeseburger. That he was just the most down to earth, normal, regular guy that, he'd talk to anybody about anything. He had no hint of pretension about him in any way. He was just John. It's like very humble and sweet. Made you feel at ease immediately, and I think he looked at the songs as something that just happened to him. It's like he'd talk to me a little bit about how it all occurred, from walking the mail route and all that songs would come to him, and you can see it, how it could have happened.
Did he ever talk about Roger Ebert showing up that night?
He didn't tell me that directly, but my dear friend Donnie Fritz was there that night. Paul Anka was there, and Donnie was playing with Christofferson, and Donnie was there when all that happened that time. He was a witness to that. Well, it's just I think there were tables. They're putting the chairs on the tables. The place had closed down, and but Donnie was there because Chris was there. Donnie played with Chris for 20 years, and he started playing songs, and it's like play another one, play another one. And it just immediately, I think somebody, maybe Chris, called Jerry Wexler, and there was a record deal immediately. I mean, it's just like some kind of miracle, that, and I think him and Goodman were like, how did this happen? It's like some kind of, fairy godmother sprinkled something on us, and all of a sudden we're going to New York, and we both got record deals. It happened just immediately. It's pretty amazing. But who could be more deserving? I mean, it's like if anybody had happened across that bag of songs, you'd have to be a fool not to just know what treasure had been found. Yeah. It's all the main memories are of writing the songs. and I would be so incredibly thrilled when I'd come up with a line and he'd go, yeah. And I'm going, oh, well, okay. And it's like to have him accept whatever my contributions were and whatever he said, I was going to go along with it immediately, you know. And the wilder, the better, It's like big fat love, and she's dancing on a razor blade or whatever, and you know, um, she's down the drain. It's like the craziest things that we could possibly come up with. Well, everything's okay because it's all for John. It's like no rules. And it was at a time for me when I was a staff writer at Sony Tree, and my job was to come up with a hit to keep my publishing deal and make a living as a songwriter. So you're focused on truly trying to come up with some radio songs, and this had nothing to do with any of that. Just pure indulgence and fun with John Prine. It's pretty magical. I remember the last conversation I had with. I think the last time I saw him was at Arnold's with Sean. We just happened to be there, and we sat and had a meal with him. But no, maybe I saw him again at a Bluebird Christmas party, and it was after his last record had really taken off. All of a sudden, everybody was loving that record so much. His very last record, and he was just acting like, yeah, man. He was amazed that it was having all this success, and but the last conversation I had with him was I had written a song called Common Sense, and it's on my new record. And so I realized while I was writing it, well, John has a song called Common Sense. It was the title of one of his records. And so I called him up and said, hey, man, I wrote a song called Common Sense. He says, oh, wow, that's great. That's the easiest co-write I ever had in my life. You know, but I played him the song, and he said, "That's your song." It's just like titles don't make any. It's just, I didn't have anything to do with that. It's your song. And anyway, that's the last time I talked to him was about that. I knew he was really close, and I wrote a song called Prine, and it's like I can't get John Prine off my mind, and it's like. I was just taking a walk down the street, and I had the song going on in my head, and it was all about just celebrating John, and it references a few of his songs in the lyric. I got back to the house and I got the word that he had passed, and so my song didn't make sense anymore. So I had to adjust it and turn it around and make it more of a tribute to him. And my son Travis put together a video, and it's on YouTube and stuff. It's called Prine. It's just called Prine, and Travis put together a really sweet video. It didn't matter if you're writing a song or not. You know, the pretense of like after he came here, we wrote all those songs, and when the record came out, and he actually offered me the job to play with him on the road, and I was playing with Delbert at the time, and Al only wanted to pay me half as much as I was making with Delbert. So what are you going to do? But I regret that I didn't just do that anyway, just to have the experience of playing. But that's when he got the great guitar player that played with him all this time.
Jason Wilbur.
Jason Wilbur, yeah, and Dave Jakes, and they made beautiful music together for a long time. I was on the road, and it's like he got a guy before Jason was in the band. He got somebody, but he called me to do it, and there's no way to do it. It was our song, and I could have been on the TV show with John and everything, but it didn't work out. But so I never really got to play gigs with him. You know, it would have been really fun. I was really proud of Howie, the way Howie produced those records. They started from ground zero with a drum machine and just stack. He'd have me play an acoustic part and then get in a different capo position and play it again. And he'd stack up like 6 or 8 acoustic parts before going to electric, and he just kind of turned me loose to. And this was before Pro Tools. This was like just collecting a lot of stuff that Howie would then put it all together wonderfully. At the time, Howie and Carlin Carter were together, and Howie had a house in Beverly Hills, and the whole house seemed to be taken up by this huge console that was in one room. Yeah, this is a harmony rocket that John Prine gave me. We were at a guitar show here in Nashville, and I found this thing, and I'd always wanted one of these because I love the way these pickups sound. And so I found it, and I started writing the check, and the guy said, "I don't take checks." And so I said, "Oh well, I'll come back tomorrow." And so John and I were there together, and we were in the parking lot. I said, "I'm going to come back tomorrow," and he said, "Yeah, I'm coming back tomorrow too." I said, "Well, I'm going to come back and get that harmony rocket." And so the next day, John came back, but I didn't come back. And he saw this guitar there that I'd liked, and he bought it and kept it until Christmas Eve, and came over to the house, and it had a little chipboard case, and he had a big red bow tied around it, and he walked in and, "Merry Christmas, John Prine and Santa Claus."
That's beautiful.
A really special thing.
Do you know what year that is?
I think it's 62. But I'm not absolutely positive about that.
Those gold foils are beautiful, man.
Yeah, this thing sounds great. It's really, really great. I put flat wounds on it. It's cool.